Hello and welcome to the Service Management Show from the team at Eficode. I'm Gary Blower. I'm an IT Service Management Practice Lead. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about managing risk, governance and compliance in respect of service management teams. And I'm pleased to be joined by Katja. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Katja Saranen. These days I go with the title Security Specialist, coming from a background of technical IT, operation infrastructure, monitoring, vulnerability management, business continuity, disaster recovery, and security solution implementations. I've been working mainly for international institutions, multinationals, financials, and these days I focus on risk governance and service IT and security management. Okay. So this side.
Excellent. Right. So, we're going to start with the basics for people not familiar with the topic. So, first of all, Katja, when we talk about risk governance and compliance, what are we really talking about when we talk about risks, for example?
Well, risks, we are talking about the possible bad things that may happen or good things that don't happen in the most simple thing. And one shouldn't focus too much that it's a hacker or something. It goes way broader than that. Mm-hmm. I think in very short, risks are things that may happen, bad things that may happen.
And I know I've done risk stuff in the past where you kind of learn about risk articulation and all these kind of posh terms, but is there a way in which, what's the kind of easiest way for people to think about documenting or writing risks?
I personally do a lot of ISO 27K. Mm-hmm. So I like to split the risks on basically by operational capabilities. Mm-hmm. So basically the governance related risks, we're going to talk about governance in a bit. What is it? But then things related to assets, things related to people, things related to applications, to external threats, continuity, suppliers. We always need to think about those. Mm-hmm. Systems and networks. So I like to split them this way, and the legal. We shouldn't forget the legal and governance on this part. But basically you can approach it whatever way you like, but this is the way that I typically doing risk assessment. I pick the categories and reflect to the company what are on this sector their most significant risks.
Okay, and you mentioned governance and compliance. So how do they relate to risks?
Well, governance and compliance governance is basically the management systems and stuff. So the policies, procedures, practices. So basically finding a unified way of doing things instead of going cowboy. So we get from our ways. So, and these basically come from need and the risk assessment. Mm-hmm. Typically, you would say we need to make something that we do it the same way, that we don't deviate and cause vulnerabilities. Uh-huh. And the compliance is then everything that is related to these. So be it policy, be it procedure, or be it the standard. So, we all know about GDPR. I suppose the audience is mainly Europeans.
Yeah.
The NIS2 coming up. Everyone is talking about it. But also basically the CIS standard, so the Center for Information Security for the technical benchmarking, COVID, HIPAA for health side, more for Americans in this case, PCI DSS. So these are basically frameworks towards which you should be compliant when it affects you.
Yeah, indeed. I think FedRAMP's another popular one in the US, and there's so many, isn't there? I know
there are so many.
You and I talked beforehand, and we both worked in banking, and I can remember there was a different compliance framework every week.
And then of course in banking you get the ESI and the SOC 2 and
Basel and
the Basel and DORA. We shouldn't forget about DORA, and of course the SOX in a little bit different context.
Yeah,
but this is the compliance when you follow the framework set by these standards. So in the very short.
So if you think about, if you're a service team and you're being asked to, manage risks or to put in place the kind of the frameworks and procedures and practices in order to do that, what's the kind of best practice advice you would give for someone who was starting out, a business that, maybe it's a startup and they're now looking to address managing risk within that business?
I think the best way is to first know what is important for you. And then you start thinking, what can happen to that? And the conversation goes basically from that. You identify your crown jewels, and you know these are the things we can't lose, either for us or if it's personal data for other reasons, we can't lose it. A lot of other reasons, there is also the customer trust, not only what fines you get, but it's also your reputation on that. Yep. And when you know what is important, you start thinking what could happen to it. And basically then you score your risks, how likely it's to happen, and if it happens, how bad it is. And that way you find the most important risks and you can start making a mitigation plan for them.
Absolutely. And in terms of like tools and things you can use, what are the common approaches that businesses take in terms of managing their risks?
Well, in my world, the most common term is that they hire one like me.
Yeah.
And have someone, because it's actually a really difficult way of finding the most central risks. So I've noticed that external help, not even that you make someone else do it, but someone that you can have a little conversation over it, someone who understands the landscape where you operate.
Yeah, because you're more objective, aren't you? Because you're looking at it from the outside in. And you mentioned you do risk assessments. I mean, what does that entail in terms of the impact on the business?
Can you define exactly what do you mean with that?
Yeah, sorry. So when you're asked to do a risk assessment, how much effort is there on the business to work with you on doing that risk assessment, and sort of how do you approach conducting the assessment?
Yeah, in my world, typically the assignment starts with the current state analysis. That basically you take one of the frameworks, whatever framework is affecting the customer, and you go control per control, you talk with them, basically just have a chat like this. It's not an audit, but it's really a chat like this, that where are you and what do you have? And that brings up basically the weak spots. And then you basically need to understand what the company does for a living and what is important. And when you match these together, and then you sit down with them and you're like, what do you think? Is this a risk for you or not? And they wake up. They do get to it. But if you tell them that, make me a list of your risks and I'll make you a plan, that doesn't work.
Okay. And I know, again, we're chatting beforehand. We talk about some of the challenges and difficulties you see within businesses. And many of these can be based on cultural issues, can't they, within the organization? So what sort of, issues and challenges do you see along those lines?
I think one of the biggest, especially what is affecting our audience here, is that the top management tends to think that any information security risk is a problem of IT or the service management team and not of the business management or the company self. So basically the challenge is aligning the strategic goals with the information security goals and build it from there, that they understand how it affects also the operational, not only IT.
So you've got the culture, you've talked about the challenges around the culture. What about education and learning? Is there any sort of training and stuff you undertake?
You mean for everyone or for the service management teams?
Or either, actually.
Either. For me, everything starts with the awareness. So if you start handling security as a whole, you need to involve absolutely everyone. So if you tell some team that here's a bunch of rules, follow this without an explanation, you'll get resistance. But when you start with awareness in a way that this is the way we secure our business, this is the way that we have a procedure to work and rules to follow, it's not your fault if something goes wrong, so you don't need to be afraid. ITers sometimes do have to be afraid of that. Yeah. So I'm always true for the awareness. As for the service management teams, it depends a lot what you do in specifics. I don't think I'm going to mention on names very many trainings or something, but basically if you do Windows stuff, there is Azure security fundamentals. If you do some tooling or something, they must have their own. Of course, there is also the independent, for example, IC Squared. I hold 2 of their certificates.
Yeah.
So you need to go by what is useful. But then on the other hand, internet is full of interesting security stuff. You find the people in LinkedIn you want to follow, and I don't know, I eat, breathe, and live security. So it's, very tempting topic. But without knowing the specific needs, I can't say exactly what training would be useful.
Yeah, understood. I know from experience in some of the stuff we've done in Eficode, some of our teams have to go through ISO training and they have to do ISO audits and all this kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I know Eficode is ISO certified. I've been involved somehow with that. So,
I know they're always panicking when it comes around every year, and
something in lines of that. But yeah, I'm aware.
Okay, and from my point of view, so obviously I work with service management tools like Jira Service Management, and quite a common thing customers ask for is how can we track things like risks and non-compliances within these tools, which we can do because they're just issue tracking tools. Is that something that's commonly done, within your sector? So when people are kind of looking to manage, the risks of the non-compliances and the mitigation, do they use tools to help them do that?
Some do. I know companies that provide these tools. My company might be building something like that too.
Nice. Well, we can talk about that later. Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. That's why I'm kind of here.
Yeah.
I see also companies who do it in Excel. So there is so many flavors on it. But what I see as most important is that these issues are recorded. You assign an ownership for them, schedule, and you actually follow up. That's basically, but whatever tool you use, you find yourself suitable. There's so many different kinds. Some companies do great with Excel. I've seen some really great tools. I've seen awful tools. So there's a lot of variation on the market.
Yeah, for things like the ticketing, it's a classic Deming cycle: plan, do, check, act. So doing that, shouldn't really matter, but.
As long as you're able to track it, if the auditor comes in place and show me what are you doing with your risks, when they've been last checked, and who's responsible, and what mitigation actions you've done, it's fine. As long as you do, but you need to find a way that suits you.
And I know you've been working with Eficode on DORA stuff.
I do your ISO stuff only.
Oh, ISO, I guess ISO stuff. Okay. Yes. Do you want to talk about, you said you're working on something. So what are the plans for the future in terms of, your sphere and your business? Yeah,
we are a very small company at the moment, only a few people and only security people. And our CEO had a vision that it has to be easier way to do management frameworks and assessments than using Excel sheets. So we're basically building information security management system on that. So you can do your framework, list where all your controls are, do assessments, basically towards ISO or ISI. These are already ready. We are adding frameworks at the moment. And keep track, do your statement of applicability. If you ever heard of this thing, it's again an ISO thing. And next on a roadmap is doing the risk management within. So we are just in MVP and we have the first company piloting. So
nice. And of course, it's not just self-service though. They need a professional like you to help you do the assessment of Jira.
You need someone who understands information security. So basically the goal is that we build it and we leave it with them. So they can do because it's continuous work. It's not that you bring in a consultant and you're good. It's never like that. You have repeating tasks. And this is also within our tool that you can assign tasks to people in a certain dates relating to certain controls. And you can do your own framework. So it's very handy.
Where can people find out more information about this?
Right now, you need to contact us because we are just releasing the MVP. We've been working on the marketing material today. So we are in a sensitive spot. But contact details on our website. You can find my face and number too if you need it. So we split the contact details in the end then, I suppose.
Yes. Okay. And hopefully we'll put some stuff below the video as well. I'm pointing out. I'm assuming it'll be below the video.
There. Yeah, it's going to be someone else that it's not in red this moment. But yeah, in the end, we are not the only ones. I'm not saying that we are the best, at least yet, because it's work in progress. But find a way that works for you. So there are good products all over the place. Pricing varies, so pick the one that works for you.
Good to know. Right. Okay. So I think we'll wrap things up there. So thank you very much, Katja, for interesting conversation on risk compliance and governance. So as I said, we'll include some links below to some of the information we've talked about in this particular episode. If you've enjoyed this episode and other episodes, then please do share the links with your friends and colleagues. If you'd like to like and subscribe to the video, you can do that as well. If you want to provide any feedback, you can also leave comments on the videos, and we do read all those comments, and we'll love to get back to you and share your experiences of, particularly within the service management context of managing risk compliance and governance, and particularly security risks. That's quite a hot topic these days. So I'll wrap things up there. So I've been Gary Lower from Eficode. We'll be back next month with another service management show. I do hope you'll join us then.
And thank you.